Been a little over a week since we've had the chaotic and disorganized Utah GOP caucus meetings and the presidential preference vote, and we've had some time to digest. So let's talk about some of the lessons that we can and cannot take from what happened. The biggest headlines were about how chaotic, disorganized the event was. People were angry, and that led to really low turnout. Only a little over 10% of Utah's Republicans even showed up. By contrast, the Democrats had a presidential primary that was run by the state on the same day, and they got about 30% turnout, which isn't bad, especially since it wasn't much of a contest. But when you get past the low turnout and frustration from attendees, and even just how disorganized the event was, you can really see that there may be some warning signs for Donald Trump. He only defeated Nikki Haley by 11,700 votes or so, and he got about 56% of the vote. In 2016, when he ran the first time, he only got 45% of the vote, which was his lowest percentage of all the states he carried that year. 4 years later, in 2020, he got 58%, and so that 56% he got at the caucus meeting is right in line with that. And it's showing that moderate Republicans in Utah still are having a difficult time casting a ballot for him. Both Donald Trump and Democrat Joe Biden have very high unfavorable ratings, but Biden's unfavorable ratings are not translating to the ballot box. He got nearly 90% of the vote here in Utah during the presidential primary, which is in line with what he's doing in other states. But for Trump, in a lot of other states, he had lower than expected victories over Nikki Haley, and he even lost a couple of states to her. That shows Republicans really aren't that enthusiastic about voting for Trump in 2024 when you compare to their enthusiasm in 2020. And we've seen that in results from other states and exit polls and public opinion surveys. There's a large number of Haley voters who say they will not vote for Trump. That could be a very big problem because he needs all the voters he can get. If he's not getting 90% of the Republican vote, it becomes very hard for him to win. He got 92% of the Republican vote nationwide in 2020, and he still lost. Now, don't get me wrong, Trump is still going to carry Utah, but Utah is just indicative of what's happening in other states. You need to resist the temptation to look at what happened in the caucus meetings and then try to extrapolate that could be problems for down-ballot candidates in November. Caucus meetings reward very intense groups of political minorities. And in this case, it is the most partisan Republicans who show up to those caucus meetings. The pool of Republican voters for primaries is much larger than caucuses and even in the general election. So you really can't look at down-ballot races and extrapolate that it could be problems for Republicans here in Utah because we simply don't even know what those races are going to look like. We're probably going to see similar turnout to other years. In 2020, Utah had its highest ever voter turnout, which was at 90%. That was in the pandemic. We had the universal vote by mail. Even the enthusiasm problems among Republicans are going to be blunted a lot by that because it is easy to cast a ballot here in the state. All that we really know from the caucus meetings is this. It was a chaotic system. Turnout was very low, which means only the most motivated partisans even showed up. Nikki Haley didn't lose by very much, especially when you compare it to other states.